If your opponent plays a Night Witch, the natural thing to expect seeing here is a Golem. But let's roll this back a bit. How would you feel if they dropped this instead? Is this just pattern recognition because Golem Night Witch is a meta combo, or does Night Witch genuinely not make any sense when played with Hog Rider compared to Golem? I think it's a mix of both. You see, the pattern recognition part of us would expect a Goblin Giant behind this P.E.K.K.A, but it doesn't make it any less of a repulsive combo. While on the other hand here, a Giant Balloon combo doesn't pass the pattern recognition vibe, but it's like, okay, I can see what you're doing, I guess it kinda works. The problem is, most people go off by meta patterns, as I can bet most of you all watching can't even answer why Goblin Demolisher and Goblin Drill is a meta combo. So in this video, I want to show you the best combo for each win condition and also explain why it works very well. Quick side note, I'm gonna try to avoid spells when possible, because if I don't, then every cycle win condition will likely just have Log as its best combo, and that's kinda boring. First combo, Hog Firecracker. Firecracker is what we call a glass cannon. She deals a ton of damage and gets way too much value for the 3 elixirs she costs. But that's just the cannon part of the term glass cannon. The problem is that she will get spelled away every single time you play her, but if you can outcycle their arrows, then she will be very useful, so that's why specifically she is a cycle card. Now if we take a look at Hog Rider, you will notice that his HP isn't high enough to even guarantee a hit every time you play him. If you play him in a heavy deck, you will likely get 4 hogs in a game tops, and even if they all connected, that's just 4 tower hits. So that's why hog decks tend to be on the cheaper side, so they can deploy as many hogs as they can. But the game has so many cycle support cards. Why Firecracker specifically? First of all, the chip damage you can get with the Firecracker's scatter shot radius is very helpful. Dropping a Hog Rider on the bridge will require an immediate response because it's just very fast. As opposed to, let's say, dropping a Knight on the bridge, which in comparison is slow, so it gives them time before they have to play something. Doing these two scenarios again with an immediate Firecracker behind shows that an immediate reaction causes splash damage on their towers. This isn't based on speed alone, because a troop they can distract will allow them to play a card late, therefore have more time to react to your Firecracker. Obviously for cycle decks, chip damage is important, so to have a defensive support card be able to switch into an offensive chip support is really nice. What's cool is that even if you are going opposite lane, a leftover Firecracker can splash their weak tower if they defend with a building. Slow replay for those that didn't catch it. Other than these, we have King Tower activations, which is a major downside of Firecracker. You might be wondering why I'm mentioning this when it really hurts hog decks, but hear me out. Hog counters are usually either a troop here if you have a heavy deck, or a building here if you have a cycle deck. If there is a lone Firecracker, playing a hog in front of her won't help against cycle decks because the optimal building position will give them a King Tower activation, but the Firecracker shot landing on certain buildings will force them to respond to the hog again. Against beatdown decks, it's the opposite, as the troops they drop will likely be high enough to where it gives no king activations, and if they prioritized king activations, they would have to drop it late and far away from your hog that it will get multiple hits. And while using a ranged card can technically work, they usually have lower DPS to where it isn't a feasible move. Second combo, Goblin Giant Rage. For a tank, you might be wondering why Rage over Zap when Infernos are a thing. In reality, Goblin Giant decks often use both of them, but if they had to pick one, Rage is a much better choice. Rage speeds up the movement speed and attack speed of a card by a significant amount. The nature of Goblin Giant is that in addition to him as a troop, he has goblins on his backpack that are also constantly attacking. Rage will not only speed him up, but it will also speed up the spear goblins on his backpack, so it's a 3-in-1 deal. And if he was evolved, it will also speed up the spawn speed of the dagger goblins. As devious as this sounds, this is not all. Rage deals damage, so it can deal with swarm cards, which are a counter for tanks. But the problem is, oftentimes it fails short on some of the healthy cards like minions and goblins. That's where it combos perfectly with his spear goblins, because they will get that finishing shot on those minions. Coincidentally, Rage combos well with Sparky and Goblin Machine, which both are a core part of the Goblin Giant playstyle. Sometimes I wonder if they would be a meta pick for him if Rage doesn't exist, but I guess we will never know. Third combo, Electro Giant Tornado. I want to start by saying that Electro Giant at 7 elixir has less HP than the regular 5 elixir giant. Let that sink in. No, that's not what I... Get the fuck out of here. This disparity in HP forces Electro Giant to be played differently, as his main game plan revolves around getting a few ticks on the tower across many pushes. But that doesn't mean it's a cycle card, because spamming him is just throwing away elixir at nothing given how easy it is to get a positive trade against him, so your game plan is to be heavily defensive and win off of overtime. Now, Tornado is one of the most broken cards on defense, mechanically speaking, especially when you consider King Tower activations. And besides helping on that defensive mission E-Giant decks have, it also has some direct synergies with him. If they use a troop that can outrange the Electro Giant, a Tornado can bring it in, so you basically kill the wizard for 3 elixir here. It can also allow you to reset the ranged Inferno mechanic on a few troops to keep your thingy alive. And that's not all, because even high DPS troops that are unaffected by his reflection can be pulled out of his range. If a dumbass played a Sparky like this on your Electro Giant, a simple Nado can make it switch lanes and potentially win you the game. There was this one time I saw a player tornado the Inferno Dragon away from the E-Giant, predicting that his opponent will predict his Nado with a freeze. That clip low-key lives rent-free in my head. Other than that, you can also Nado things to line them up with Bowler or Golden Knight to chip their tower, since E-Giant isn't super reliable in every matchup. Fourth combo, Golem, Night Witch. Golem. I know it's Golem. I just can't fully prove it. No one runs Night Witch except for Golem. Well, I guess that's some sort of Golem. Jokes aside, Golem Night Witch is easily top 5 most iconic card combos of all time. I see many people making the mistake of shoving the Golem right in front of the Night Witch, and that's bad because it makes countering both much easier. The actual correct way to play them is by literally placing the Night Witch like half an arena across the Golem. This allows her to both support the Golem, since her bats are very quick, so they would catch up, while she remains unkillable for a very long time. Not only do these bats completely kill any potential counter push if left ignored, but also if they were to deal with them, it's not as easy as just using a spell, because they come in multiple small waves, so spilling them becomes very inefficient. They are also decent at distracting Inferno Towers, which is part of the reason why Golem decks can afford to run a spell like Tornado instead of Zap. And if that all wasn't enough, the bats will tank a Princess Tower shot when the Golem dies, which makes the Princess Tower go back to targeting the Golemites, which keeps your push much safer with 2 extra mini tanks. Like bro, if there was no bats here, the Cannoneer would have locked on the Lumberjack and killed him. But instead, I get the whole tower because of one tiny little bat. Fifth combo, E-Golem Healer. E-Golem being 3 elixir means it's extremely easy to get it down as a counter push instead of building a push from the back. Your counter pushing units are often not at full HP, so having a healer to support them can be very beneficial if she gets a couple of heals on them, especially considering that it has a spawn heal too. But this isn't the only reason it works with E-Golem.
I'm going to buy some milk, just in case your mother asks about me.
Yeah, okay dad, I don't know why you tell me this, like the store is just 5 minutes away. As I was saying, another reason Healer works with E-Golem is because the blobs is where most of the damage comes from in an E-Golem push, and considering they stay at 2 medium-sized blobs and split into 4 small ones, you would get double and quadruple the value of the heal on each swing. Sixth combo, Balloon Snowball. This is one of the few cases where a spell combo is too good, I'm making an exception. Balloon is a card that can be played in very quick cycle decks, kinda like how you play Hog Rider to slowly chip their tower with death damage or minor. Or it can be played in heavier bridge spam like decks that aim to build a big push and get several balloon hits on their tower. In both cases, Snowball is an amazing card to use with him. This spell can slow down enemy towers, which might get you one last balloon hit, aka like 1000 damage or something. It can push away certain cards that would cause them to waste time walking back, or I guess flying back, to the balloon, forcing them to respawn again or take a couple of hits. The heavier decks sometimes use freeze, but it basically serves similar function, only it's more expensive and has bigger radius. And the damage from the snowball can combo with the balloon damage to one-shot certain buildings, which is crucial given the balloon has very slow hit speed. Just be careful, because using Evo Snowball gives you worse results, so you don't want the card evolved at all. Seventh combo, Lava Balloon. I honestly didn't like the idea of a win condition best combo being another win condition, but I'd rather not lie to satisfy my OCD. Lava Hound on her own will just tickle the enemy tower and basically be a massive negative elixir trade for you, given she costs 7 elixir and doesn't hold her own. And even if you back her up, the damage she does is too low, people can just ignore her and deal with the supporting troops first, since taking a few hundred damage to get rid of the support more efficiently is not a bad deal. But with Balloon, they really need to fully focus on the Balloon itself, because if they target the support first, they are gonna lose their tower. And if they try to deal with the Balloon only, the support troop will kill whatever they used on the Balloon and then take out their tower. Dealing with both at the same time is often not an option, since decks don't run that much air defense, so they end up having to stall the supporting troops by feeding them ground tanks. What's funny is, if you noticed their stalling was too effective, you can split push next time, leaving them second guessing on where they want to use their anti-air card, because they likely don't have enough to deal with both lanes. 8th combo, Giant Prince. This was really hard to pick because Giant is an extremely versatile card that can be played normally in Giant Double Prince decks or be played in Giant Graveyard decks, which typically would opt in to use Swarm cards for DPS instead of using Prince, or even Giant Sparky decks, which, believe it or not, prefers Mini P.E.K.K.A. over Prince despite it being an arguably worse card, at least before the recent Prince nerf. But when you think about it, playing Prince in Giant Graveyard or Giant Sparky, while not the most optimal pick, it really isn't the worst idea. Unlike Mini P.E.K.K.A., Prince can charge, so he's faster and much more offensive. He has range, so he wouldn't be stuck behind Giant like this pancake-loving goofball over here, and his HP is significantly higher that he can hold his own ground much better against Swarm cards, so stopping him is much more difficult. Being more all-arounded and only costing 1 more elixir makes Giant Prince combo very deadly in single elixir, especially when supported with a small spell like Rage and Zap. And the fact he can jump over the river is also a good utility, as it can make reaching buildings to support your Giant much easier. And if that wasn't enough, Prince can sometimes be used to get a speedy Giant instead of a regular one, which I think pushing your Giant can be helpful sometimes. 9th combo, Goblin Drill Goblin Demolisher. What's the one thing a drill cycle spammer fears more than a shower? It's a splash attacking mini tank like Dark Prince or Valkyrie. A splash card played on the bridge would have a much easier time splashing your tower when they play a mini tank in front to counter your drill. Bomber is a popular pick, however Demolisher works the same, but he is tanky enough to tank for the drill himself. When the drill is being tanked for, the classic Ice Spirit log combo no longer fully counters it, which is huge. So now not only do they have to commit more to your drill, but they also need to distract your Demolisher from splashing their tower. And honestly, they even need to worry about killing him quickly once he starts running. It's just too much to pay attention to. And coincidentally, people use buildings to defend drill since they are immune to Snowball's pushback. This makes defending your Demolisher a bit harder since they have to pick one card to counter with their building. 10th combo, Expo Tesla. We all know this combo is a thing due to how iconic it is, but most of the players have no clue why it works this well. It all comes down to 2 things: how small Tesla is compared to other buildings, and the fact it goes underground when it's not attacking. This one I think even most Expo players don't know. The smaller size allows it to reach more troops on the enemy side than say a cannon on the river. And yes, they both have the same range despite the fact that Tesla looked like it has a half a tile extra range here. The smaller size also allows it to fit here, which is a position that's used to tank against a Royal Giant placed specifically to snipe the Expo. If you were using literally any other building, it just becomes impossible to tank for your Expo if they go for this Royal Giant placement. The smaller size also plays a role in having it be playable in more spell-proof positions, like a middle placement Tesla is immune to Earthquake, whereas all the other buildings are much easier to hit with spells. Overall, being a 2x2 tile building definitely has its advantages. Regarding the hidden part of the Tesla, it's very helpful with offensive river Teslas. Unlike cannon, it can't get outranged, so they will have to overcommit if they want to take it out completely. And it doesn't sit there doing nothing against air troops, as it can fight back. In an Expo deck, having a building that's good on the river is important because it allows you to drop an Expo beside it at any time you see fit. Just knowing you can always play an Expo beside it gives you the freedom to use your Tesla offensively to snipe their support troops. Furthermore, given how defensive Expo playstyle is, the hidden mechanic allows them to cycle multiple Teslas without worrying too much about giving spell value unless the opponent has to overcommit. 11th combo, Miner Poison. Miner is a very versatile card as it can be played in heavy decks like Lava and in cheap decks like Wall Breakers. But what if you wanted him to be the main win condition? A Miner push will never take a tower. You'd be lucky if you got 200 damage off of it, to be honest. This is why Poison is a popular pick for Miner decks, as it deals ton of damage for a moderately cheap price. And dropping it right after a Miner will make countering him with Swarms be no longer an option. In double and triple elixir, people tend to play 2 or 3 troops to catch miners because any damage can change the tides in Tiebreaker. This basically gives you free poison value even if it wasn't on troops that are specifically weak to it. Especially if they can't afford to take damage, they would literally be forced to drop troops inside the poison to take a couple less hits from the miner. And if you were ahead on damage that you no longer need to attack, you can use it on defense as it clogs up the bridge and slows down everything and deals decent damage to pushes. 12th combo, Graveyard Barbarian Barrel. The RNG factor of Graveyard makes it less reliant on being properly supported than other win conditions. I'm not saying you can drop a naked Graveyard and get away with it. We all know this would just set you back 5 elixir in exchange of nothing. Well, I guess you got 1 skeleton hit because of RNG, but you know, you get the point. But what I'm trying to say is that a naked giant or expo on the bridge will literally never get any damage on their tower unless they are incompetent. You would have to properly support them, and even then you would be lucky if you get a connection. Oh my god, no way, my expo got 1 tick on the tower. But for Graveyard, even if it wasn't properly supported and you were playing against a competent player, you could still get a few lucky hits from RNG. And for this reason, Graveyard decks tend to be like 7 defensive cards and a Graveyard. Now, Bar Barrel is one of the best defensive spells at the expense of it being horrible on offense. And this works out really well for Graveyard as it can bail you out of being down so much elixir when you overcommit on offense. That alone isn't enough to make it the best combo for Graveyard, because with that logic, Ice Wizard is actually a more suitable choice. But it has some special synergy that makes it take the Ice Wizard spot. As a Graveyard player, the most annoying thing your opponent can do is bridge block your tank right as you play your Graveyard, because the tower being focused on skeletons just makes it nearly useless. Bar Barrel spawns a tank on their side, they cannot physically block it no matter what. It may seem like a niche strategy, but nearly every single Graveyard deck uses Bar Barrel and does this trick at least once per game, or like once every couple of games. 13th combo, Ram Rider Lumberjack. Unless you know exactly what 4 cards they have in their hand, sending a naked Ram Rider is a stupid play. Truth is that a 5 elixir building targeting troop with that little HP is just asking for a negative trade. But that doesn't mean any card can be used. What are we even doing, dude? I believe Lumberjack is the best one to tank for her because first of all, her snare will slightly damage multiple troops instead of 1 troop only, making it easier for him to one-tap things he normally shouldn't. The rage from his death can speed up the charge on the Ram Rider as well as the snare attack speed, and the damage from it will bring up the HP of certain cards like the goblins and the minions low enough to where the snare can one-shot them. Oh, and I guess it gives you more time to react with Snowball since the troops they play will likely target the Lumberjack first, but every tank does that. 14th combo, Battle Ram Ghost. Honestly, at first I was skeptical when I picked Ghost because it didn't seem like there is much of a one-to-one synergy, but looking at must-use cards with Battle Ram on Royale API did reassure me. The main idea behind this combo is that you play Ram after the Ghost crosses a few tiles from the bridge. The Battle Ram HP isn't that important because once it connects, it just dies anyway. So if it gets in range of the tower before your Ghost attacks something and starts tanking for it, that's technically a good thing. Also, the Ghost being there makes it awkward to play not only Swarm cards as they will get splashed, but even regular cards will sometimes target the Ghost and let the Battle Ram connect, which the Barbarians will finish off this mini P.E.K.K.A after. Pro tip by the way, a well-timed and placed mini P.E.K.K.A can take out this entire push on his own, which, to be honest, I'm sure nearly no one knows this was possible. Ghost and Battle Ram combo is not that insane because Battle Ram is kind of like an independent card that's mostly used to apply pressure. 15th combo, Wall Breakers Valkyrie. The main challenge in playing Wall Breakers as a win condition is that they really need a tank. Most people use Miner, which isn't really necessarily a bad idea, but he is better used as a secondary win condition, because being this separated means you can just counter both of them. But when you use an actual tank in front of the wall breakers, then it will make a noticeable impact. I decided to pick Valkyrie over Knight for a couple of reasons. She tends to be better than Knight in this situation because it makes using swarm cards to kill wall breakers impossible. She is also much more tanky, so she would be more likely to have a decent amount of HP from a defense for a counter push. 16th combo, Goblin Barrel Princess. One can make the argument that any log bait card such as Dart Goblin has the same synergy, but I have a strong case to why Princess has a much better synergy. Unlike Dart Goblin that they can fully ignore and the Goblin Gang that can be stopped with a zap, a Princess on the bridge will either force out a medium spell like arrows or will force out some expensive unit, which could be nice because this game rewards reacting to your opponent more than acting first most of the time. The range also makes it impossible for them to lock both your Goblin Barrel and Princess. Now technically speaking, if they time it perfectly, it can store to kill both of them. But the simple counterplay to this is placing the Goblin Barrel behind the tower instead of on the middle, as this will make it impossible to get both of them with the same log. Obviously this is a niche trick because it's rare for logbait players to dump all their elixir on the bridge, but as you can see here with the Dart Goblin, it was easier to stop. What's not rare is people defending your Goblin Barrel with troops if you do a good job baiting their spell. One of the common responses is a pre-planted Evo skeletons because they can fully counter it, or even regular skeletons and a spirit. Most of the time it will be swarm cards due to their structure of deployment. With a Princess on the bridge, she will splash the tower and the cards they play to counter your barrel. Other logbait cards like Dart Goblin can't do something like that, which is why I think Princess is extremely important. Also, the chip damage on the bridge is needed because barrel is low-key as a win condition. 17th combo, Mortar Goblin Gang. When you play a siege building, you can't just leave it alone and expect it to do stuff on its own. Unlike Expo, I believe Mortar Tesla is a bit more awkward for a few reasons. First of all, you are less likely to win a game off of one mortar lock, so building up Teslas on the bridge for a push is less effective here. Second of all, Mortar is a 4-cost building, so unlike Expo, it's kinda usable on defense, meaning you don't really need a Tesla this much in a Mortar deck. From all the cards you can protect with Mortar, I believe Goblin Gang is the best one here. You can play all 6 of them in front of the Mortar if you wanna prioritize keeping your win condition healthy, or you can play Spear Goblins behind it so that the Dagger Goblins would tank for a bit, then the Mortar would tank for another bit, and the Spear Goblins would eliminate any potential counter push. And the fact there are 6 of them means they can do a decent job at stalling some hard hitters, allowing 1 or 2 extra shots. Like, they are great at stalling even if they get zapped, so that's a bit more spell proof. Now you might think, why doesn't Expo decks protect with them if they are this good? See, now the main issue is that Expo is 6 elixir, so playing Expo Gang is like your entire elixir bar, whereas with Mortar it only takes 7 elixir to get both down. The expensive cost of Expo forces it to go for slow cards like using a counter pushing Knight to tank for their Expo, or using an already placed Tesla. Overall, they don't have the luxury of a 4-cost win condition, so that means Mortar players have more option to protect their win condition. 18th combo, Royal Giant Fisherman. Top 3 dumbest things a human can do. Number 3, cave diving. Now, I have no idea what needs to go wrong with your life for you to find pleasure in doing this. I will never get it. Seek help if you unironically do this. Actually, seek help even if you do it ironically. Like, what the Number 2, the gameplay of this Sephiroth I faced in Smash. Round of applause everyone, he saved his jump on the 3rd time. Not that it helped him, but you live and learn. Number 1, playing Royal Giant without Fisherman. I genuinely can't recall a single time I faced a Royal Giant deck without Fisherman unless it was against bad players due to season reset. The most classic use of Fisherman in that deck is to pull things like P.E.K.K.A away from your Royal Giant to ensure he doesn't get hard countered so hard. Since the Fisherman is on your own side, they can only spell him, which would delay him significantly, but it means that they won't have the zap for your skeletons. One of the core aspects of the Royal Giant playstyle is dual lane pushing when you can't break through on a single lane push or pushing twice in a row in the same lane. This would require you to play a Royal Giant in the back, which is honestly a very punishable play. Unless you have Fisherman, then you can get bailed out so hard from a situation where you should have literally lost your entire tower. And if that wasn't enough to convince you, Fisherman is an anti-building card. See, even if they play the tank to protect their building from the all fish slap, the slowdown from the hook is actually very useful. And if you wanted to fireball their building anyway, you can catch the troop that they play to distract your Fisherman from their building. 19th combo, Royal Hogs Recruits. Now Royal Hogs are sometimes used in quick cycle decks, and those don't usually play recruits, but I personally think they are way more relevant in recruits decks, especially after the removal of 3-card cycle. First of all, they are weak to Fireball, which means they work well with Fireball bait cards like Zappies and Flying Machine. Coincidentally, these two also work well with recruits. Zappies are great because they can be split, and Flying Machine has so much range to where it can cover both sides of the recruits when played on the river. And of course, Royal Hogs themselves can also split. It feels like those 4 cards were made for each other. The general gameplay revolves around seeing which lane of your recruits push one and spamming your hogs there because they likely lost the lane due to being low on elixir. If you want both lanes, you can just split your hogs on both towers. Chances are if their defense is chopped enough to lose both fights, then they're probably gonna lose both their towers. Even a 3-1 split can do great in certain situations, as you can see that one single Royal Hog tanked for their Royal Ghost and won me the entire lane fight. Overall, the reason these two work so well together is the insane flexibility. 20th combo, 3 Musketeers Elixir Collector. On paper, 3 Musketeers for 9 Elixir sounds like a steal, especially when you consider that playing a normal Musketeer and mirroring a second one is 9 Elixir for 2 Musketeers instead of 3. But the problem is, you spend your entire Elixir bar on 3 glass cannons that would most likely just get annihilated by literally anything. Here is where the Elixir Collector comes into play, because if you have a pump down, you might be able to play a 2 Elixir card like an Ice Golem to support your ladies. It's even better if you have 2 pumps down. Or 10, I don't know, the more the merrier. Elixir Pump also acts as a spell bait card because you truly can't let them pump or you are gonna lose the game. But if they fireball your pump, this means your 3 Musketeers are safe to play. 21st combo, Skeleton Barrel Skeleton King. This is another case of this card works with every bait card, there isn't really one that stands out the most. I did notice that Skeleton King tends to be in majority of the Skeleton Barrel bait decks, so I decided to go with it. They do have a one-way relationship where the Skeleton King is the only beneficial part, as the Skeleton Barrel will bait out a spell and fill most of his super bar. And since there are no more small spells in the picture, his ability would just become more effective. Now you might be thinking, wouldn't a skeleton army fill more slots for the same cost? Technically yes, but a skeleton army is easier to counter without a small spell, and also it's not a win condition. If you want to abuse this synergy defensively, play a Skeleton King in the back, same lane as an offensive Skeleton Barrel. If they counter the Skeleton Barrel with a troop, you will get a nearly full ability, which can be useful in dealing with their counter push. And if they used a small spell, you would have a Skeleton King with a 2 Elixir graveyard on a counter push. 22nd combo, Suspicious Bush Ice Spirit. One way to counter a Suspicious Bush is by using a spell when it's on the bridge and letting the tower finish the job. This would technically give you a free tank, which would either get you more damage or bait out a second spell. For that reason, I tend to see many players, including me, prefer to counter it by waiting for it to get on the tower and killing the bush goblins with troops. Here is where the Ice Spirit comes into play. It will distract the tower and the jump would freeze both the troop and the tower, allowing the bush goblins to deal crazy damage to their troop. And if they used a squishier, non-splashing troop, like let's say a bandit, they would take her out and start hitting the tower. Oh, he went to buy milk when I was playing Eagle. Damn, I'm fatherless now, my dudes.